Good evening, friends and family, and thank you for coming to another night with Repair, Restore, and Grow Black Communities podcast. We have weekly Behind Black Business. And as you know, we feature a Black business on our podcast every week because this is how we feel we can circulate dollars in our community by supporting our Black businesses. Why? Because our Black businesses are more likely to reinvest the dollars from their profits back into our communities. Our Black owned businesses are more likely to hire Black people, do services with other Black people, serve as role models for our children, give other Black entrepreneurs an opportunity to put their products in their stores, and so this helps to strengthen our community. And we feel here at Repair, Restore, and Grow Black Communities that this is why we have such a decay in our communities because of the lack of reinvestment. Tonight we have Brother Yoel from the Underground Bookstore. Brother Yoel was the first business that we had on our podcast. And we started out with our bookstores because we feel that our bookstores are so important. So thank you for coming tonight, Brother Yoel.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And good evening to the listening audience or the family out there.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so, as you know, we feature a Black bookstore on our website every month. We go through a cycle. This month we have the Frontline Bookstore, and then next month we'll have Underground, and then we have Everywhere. So we kind of do a circuit with our Black bookstores, and this month is the Frontline Bookstore. And as you know, Frontline Bookstore is having some difficulties right now. They're facing eviction. And we've been working very hard, reaching out to different leadership and our different politicians at the local level to see what kind of support we can give to Frontline. Frontline has a GoFundMe page that individuals have been contributing to. So we're hoping that Frontline will be able to stay in Hyde Park. Our bookstores are very important. And that's why we make a big issue out of having our bookstores on our website. We also feature the Southside Community Federal Credit Union, which is the only Black-owned bank that we have left in Chicago. We have a lot of institutions that have diminished over the years, and we're trying to continue to support those that continue to exist. With the bookstores, we have a book giveaway every month. And so the book that was selected by Frontline to be given away is The Eternal Year of the African People by Asantewa Opong Wade. And this is a publishing of Frontline. They actually published this book, and it addresses the United Nations designation of 2009 as the year of the African people. And you have a lot of writings in this book by different activists, authors, giving their perspectives on our language, our culture, education, the arts, spirituality, film, music. And it's just a whole compilation of information about our people. There's a CD that comes with the book. And so the last Wednesday, which will be next Wednesday, which will be the last Wednesday of the month, we will announce the winner. And all you have to do to win a copy of this book is to subscribe to our website. at rrgbc.org. So tonight, I asked Brother Yoel to come in and give some information to us about our Black bookstores, some history on the Black bookstores here in Chicago, and just to talk about why our bookstores are so important, are such an important entity. Um, and this conversation has evolved around the fact of what Frontline is going through right now. So, Brother Yoel, I'll let you begin the conversation by first, giving some information on how you got started with Frontline and how long has I'm sorry, not Frontline, Underground. How long has the Underground bookstore been in existence?
Hmm. Okay. Well, uh, Underground's been in existence since for about 30 years now, going on 30 years this year. Um, it came into existence by Freedom Found Bookstore, which was the parent company of Underground. Okay, and that was in Hyde Park, where Frontline Bookstore is right now.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first, and they came into existence, I believe, in 91. I believe it is 91 or 92. And this one came in existence in 92, and they was in 91. Yeah. So, um, of course, at that time, there was a brother named Ansar, um, who Robert Walters from um, uh, Freedom Found put in charge of the one over here where I'm at 1727 East 87th Street. Um, he put him over here and called it um, Underground. So the original card read Freedom Found and the Underground.
Mm-hmm.
And most people thought both was just Freedom Found, but no, this was the Underground and that was Freedom Found in Hyde Park.
Mm-hmm.
So the brother was here 2 years before I came into the picture. Um, and he was going through some challenges when I first encountered him, with domestic challenges. He was going through some issues with his significant other. Um, and I was going through some changes as well because at that time I was homeless and I was well, I wouldn't say exactly homeless, but I tried staying with my brother for a while, and his wife didn't want me there because I think they had a situation where they like to have the ups on my brother, and me coming into the house was changing the dynamics. So I left there because I didn't want to give him no problems. So I ended up coming over to 87th Street and meeting Brother Ansar. And upon meeting him, something told me to ask him if I could possibly stay in the back. To make a long story short, basically, not to get all the details, but um, he said yes, and he had a bench back in the back of the in the office part of the store, and that I would sleep on, of course. And I changed that when he left, and I brought in my back seat of my van. I was able to take that back seat out, and I brought it into the store, and that was my bed. So no girlfriends, no nothing for me for a moment because that's unless they was willing to come hang out on the couch in the back of the bookstore, it ain't going on.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, um, but to go back a little bit, the brother kept going through changes with his significant other, of course. And what happened was he got tired of it, I guess, and he had been planning this. I didn't find that out until the night before I had to go to the landlord and told him that I might possibly wanted to take over the bookstore.
Mm-hmm.
And but so when he came to me on a Wednesday, the Wednesday before he left, and told me he was going to be out by Friday. I had been here maybe a couple of months at that time. He said he was going to be out by Friday, and I'm saying out by Friday. In my mind, I'm like, okay, what am I going to do now? What do you? He's going to be out. He didn't tell me this, right? It was unexpected. So by that Friday, he was out. So that Friday evening, of course, after he was gone, I was thinking in my head, okay, what am I going to say to this landlord? What do I need to do to try to go see if I can get this landlord to allow me to stay here? And of course, allowing me to stay here meant that I only had about a couple of boxes of books that Ansar had talked me into carrying while um, I was staying here. So I had accumulated about a couple of boxes of books, and I had all of my other little stuff, African artifacts and stuff like that that I sold, handcrafted earrings, T-shirts, and things like this, cowrie shells, bracelets, and all that kind of stuff. So I
Mm-hmm.
incorporated the books into that. And I would do festivals and sell in the streets to beauty salons and all that kind of stuff. Um, so um, So I had at that time those two boxes of books and $800. So the next morning I got up after having my little conversation with myself or creator and said, go to the landlord and tell him what you want to do. So I went, and when I said to him, I like to take over the bookstore, he said, what do you mean? I said, well, Ansar's gone, so I like to keep the bookstore if I can. He said, what you mean gone? Oh,
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 he didn't. He
so
didn't
then,
know. He didn't
oh,
know that the other proprietor that the proprietor had left the store.
yeah, he said he was gone. And what do you mean? So anyway, I explained to him that he was gone. He packed up. He gone.
Mm-hmm.
He said, that man owed me two months rent and going on 3 months rent.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean? I said, well, he's gone. That's all I could say. Uh, I said, but I like to keep the store. And if you will allow me, I'll try to get your money back from him, your money from him, and um, if you let me keep the store. And if you don't, then I'll pay the money that he owes you, pay you the money he owes you. He said, uh, with some hesitancy, of course, he said, yes. So I said,
Mm-hmm.
okay. Well, of course, trying to get the money back from a man who planned that getaway for a while, he wasn't intending on giving me no money to give to the landlord. So I ended up
Okay.
having to pay him for that the rent that he owed him. So he would allow me to pay the rent plus a little extra toward that money that um, he was owed.
So
So
you have been there. You have been there ever since.
yes, so
You've been this location ever since.
hmm
So that's been since
94.
1994.
Yes,
Excellent. Excellent.
yes,
Well,
yes,
let
yes.
me ask you a question. Um, During that time in 1994,
hmm
there were lots of other black bookstores,
Yes,
and I remember you giving a number to me at one point that we once had, was it 24 black bookstores here in
I think it
Chicago?
was around 21, 22
21 or
in
22?
Chicago and outside of the in suburbs of Chicago, because you had a couple in one in um, Maywood and Bellwood too. There was two sisters out that way, you know.
Okay.
So yes.
So where were these bookstores situated in Chicago? Were they primarily on the south side, or were there ones on the west side, or different
But actually,
regions?
most of them were on the south side, and you had one downtown. You had Haki had about two at the time. He had one on 75th and Cottage, and then one on 71st Street past Stony Island, as I think it was called Artist Row at that time. He had one over there. uh,
Okay.
he also tried to have one out in I think it's out in the suburbs out south,
Mm-hmm.
and there was one on the north side called Africa North, and then there was one on the west side as well. Uh, and they had you had one on 103rd Street, so you had them all scattered around, but most of them was out south or southwest. Well, only one southwest. Funniest part about this is that southwest between any, I'd say 50s and the 95th Street, there was never any bookstores in that area over that way. Had from
Mm-hmm.
the expressway, State Street, all the way back over to Western, never has been a bookstore over that way. Most of them have been southeast, and the only one that was west over there was it was in Beverly, and it was on 103rd Street in Beverly. That was a guy
Okay.
named Shabazz. He and his wife, Constance Shabazz, they had a store out there next to the railroad, the rail track or the commuter train out there in Beverly.
Okay.
Yes,
So during that time, why do you think we had so many black bookstores?
I think it was a trend, um, and it was a growing trend.
Mm-hmm.
In the middle '90s, they came out with a report, um, and middle to upper '90s, and that report said that um, African Americans were the fastest growing readership in the country at that time.
Mm.
Okay,
Okay.
so um, of course there was this white publishers and distributors decided to do a study on this. So they what they did was paid tens of thousands of dollars to this company that find out how what sell, how we come about reading the books we read, uh, why we read those books and things like that. They was why, when, and all of that. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
they wanted to know what was going on with us. Um, so they paid that money to that company to find out. And what they found out was that we read books mostly by word of mouth. Somebody told us about it. And the plan was, of course, with them, it was to see how they can get us from that word of mouth to their New York bestsellers list. Which, of
Okay.
course, you know that uh, the books that we were reading are hardcore folks is reading the really the hardcore black literature that's telling us really about our African selves and our glory and uh, royal past that we have and all of that kind of stuff wasn't going to make the New York bestsellers list. So
Mm-hmm.
that was a problem with me and some other uh, books sellers. But they was persistent on trying to still manipulate things and get things to where we would look at their New York bestsellers list as opposed to going by word of mouth. See, it was about control. How could they control that? You know,
Mm-hmm.
and it
Okay.
always has been. You know,
So I know I have read, I guess as early as back in the 40s, where black people were really beginning to start to read. There were, bookstores were evolving, but even before the bookstores evolved, we had books in different types of establishments. There were you might find our books in the drugstores, in the grocery stores and other types of establishments where we would find our books. So, are you still there, me,
Yeah.
Brother Yoel?
I'm
Okay,
still
yeah. So we would have, we had books in all different kinds of places, and so now, we have all of these. We had all of these bookstores, and you say it was a trend. Um, I'll go back maybe into the early '80s, where I would say even for myself is when I started to get a different information about my history, or I would maybe even say more extensive information about my history.
Mhm.
In grammar school, George Washington, was the first president. Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves. Columbus discovered America.
Mhm.
That was generally the information that you got. Very little information about Africa, very little information about slavery, the Jim Crow area, and so on and so forth. And so I remember my first class at University of Illinois. People were just sitting on the floor and on top of desks to get this information. So this was back in the early '80s. So I think we were ripe for that explosion of bookstores that occurred during the '90s here in Chicago.
Mhm. Yes. Well, let me just say one other thing. At that time, they didn't just pay this company to study black book buying habits of black African Americans, but they went one further. They decided they would host in Chicago, in your city,
Mm-hmm.
10 years, all black publishers and distributors. They will host a conference every year here in Chicago for 10 years. Okay. Now,
Mm-hmm.
what's uh, the backdrop of things here, most of the people who were distributing or publishing our books were not born in America. They were from somewhere else. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
they were either African or they were either from the Caribbean. Okay, so that's who was distributing. Those mostly the distributors of our books. Okay, like
Mm-hmm.
right now, I think it's still about the same. You got some uh, born and raised here in the United States, people who are selling that are born and raised here, but you got still mostly you Caribbean people who are distributing most of our books and whatnot. And how that's significant is this: that most of them, well, one guy who had several wholesale distribution entities from California to New York, um, Chicago, Atlanta, and I think he tried his hand in possibly Detroit too for a while. But he saw when he came to Chicago, he saw books introduced to him through his brother moving.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how he ended up getting into book business. So but he didn't read any of those books. So that is
Mm-hmm.
important because these guys didn't read any of the books they was reading. So the people that they were dealing with, that they thought at that time it was inviting them to these conferences,
Mm-hmm.
really
They
wasn't
were
trying to
just.
show that they had arrived. They were really trying to figure out what they were doing so they can undercut and destroy them. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so they
Mm-hmm.
needed more information so about what they were doing and how they was doing it, so they
Mm-hmm.
could close them down. So that's kind of that's important in the scheme of things because uh, they were thinking that they had arrived. That these Caucasians had basically invited them to the table and paying for them to fly them in and things like this. And of course, to them, that's what it looked like. But that wasn't
Mm-hmm.
what was in the minds of the people who were bringing them in, the white publishers and distributors who financed those conferences for 10 years like that. Okay.
Why were most of the distributors from the Caribbean? If we had, black people with all these bookstores in Chicago, why weren't black people publishing and distributing and black Americans? Yeah, say.
Well, that's a good question. I don't know. Sometimes in our own cities, we seem to be a little bit more lax than other people who come here hungry and they create something. You know,
Mm-hmm.
uh, look at me. People want me to be the bookstore savior, but that's not me. I mean, I can't set up a bookstore everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Run businesses. So many people over the years have asked me about coming to their town uh,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and setting up bookstore and things like this until I got to the point where I started reversing that and said, "Why don't you do that, and I'll help you.
Mm-hmm.
I'll help you to get started and tell you what to do and all of that." So I think that has something to do with it. Uh, we tend to be a little bit lax and we don't do those kind of things. Like, I mean, I'm from Mississippi. I come to Chicago, and what would Chicago be if I didn't come to Mississippi right now? I don't know. But
Mm-hmm.
bottom line is that we tend to leave those kind of things, or companies building companies to other people,
Mm-hmm.
more so than taking it upon ourselves to do it. Or in bookstore, big book business, I'm not so sure that we looked like that could make a lot of money or something. I don't know.
Okay.
I never really asked anybody why they don't, but we just didn't, you know. And because those guys didn't know what was going on and they didn't have our history, they weren't conscious of the fact that they were being set up. But I told them that years ago when that was happening. I let some of them know that then, but they didn't believe me. They didn't believe me until later on, years later, when the other distributors started dropping off and
Mm-hmm.
bookstores started dropping off. It was 500 and maybe 32 or something like that, from 300 to 532 in the business when I came into the business. And now where we at, about less than 35 brick and mortar. Now you got some online presences, but I'm talking
Mm-hmm.
about brick and mortar, a place that you can go to. We got about maybe 35 of those left. And the city of Chicago, of course, at that time, because Chicago had so many, they had we had the record for and the distinction of having the most black bookstores in one city in the country. Okay,
Okay.
most black
Right.
people in Chicago don't even know to this day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So was there a correlation between the Caribbeans who were the distributors and the publishers of our books? Was there what was the correlation between their decline and the decline of the number of black bookstores that we had? Or well, what was it that contributed to that decline in black bookstores?
Well, in the beginning, the people who started in the beginning, got in early in the early 90s, they made the most money because they were getting in on the ground floor for one. That's one reason. But as things start catching on and other people start seeing that they could do this, and they got it, they started opening up businesses too, and the businesses start growing, then money start going down for us. Okay, and then we didn't have a black bookstore association or nothing like that, so we could
Mm,
communicate and work collectively together or anything like that.
mhm,
It was like everybody was competing with the other guy, and things like this. So, um, and so when their money started decreasing, some of them started dropping off because they wanted to make so much money. And then at the same time, we had other places, like the Caucasians bought into the picture of crowns, specifically pretty much to um, cut into some of the profits of mom and pop bookstores, particularly black bookstores in this case. And they
mhm,
did. And then when that wasn't wasn't getting it, they created super crowns. You remember that? Super crowns.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
So you could even get a bigger discount.
Mm-hmm.
So and then when they finished with super crown and working on us, they came up with borders. And borders came on the scene. And borders came out and spread it all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And they they would have they got to the point where they would have I saw where one Christmas, I think it was just before Christmas, it was the new releases were coming out. I remember Terry McMillan's A Day Late and a Dollar Short was coming out. Well, people that was asking me if I was gonna get the book, and I said yeah, but before I could get the book, I saw where Borders them was getting. They had the book already, and they were giving 40% off the book, and we only got 40% off the book. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
as a bookstore, we got only 40%. So how can I compete with that? So I never really got in the game of trying to compete with um, Borders or Super Crowns for that matter. I just did
Mm-hmm.
my thing and didn't worry about them. For those people who did, if you were in the novel business, they could affect you more. But I wasn't in the novel business.
Mm-hmm.
Myself and Frontline, for instance, we neither one of us do a whole lot with novels,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately. But um, uh, what we did get into is still why we're still here today, though, and that was the nonfiction stuff mostly. So, so just things that started changing, and they started dropping off and leaving. Basically, and
Mm-hmm.
and the distributors started dropping off as well. Now, of course, I don't know all of the factors. I never really taken a look at all of the factors involved in why the distributors dropped off and the bookstores, but I'm pretty sure it has something to do with them. And that's 10 years that they spent trying to figure out how to cut the black publishers and distributors off at the knees there. Uh, I'm pretty sure it has something to do with that.
Well, that seems like that's what has happened to a lot of our industries. You know,
Mhm.
the big companies come along and they undercut. As you say, they come in with lower prices. And they have ways of pushing you out of the market.
Mhm.
And then, like you say, the types of books that you have has been what's enabled you to stay relevant.
Yes.
And so, that being said, what are the different categories of books that you do carry in your bookstore?
Well, I carry fiction, but mostly uh, classic stuff, old stuff. But then the old stuff is not selling right now. Then so
So what would be the classic? Give me some
like
examples.
your Langston Hughes, your Maya Angelou, your Douglas, your W. E. Du Bois, James Baldwin, things like that.
Mhm,
Those were kind of staples, and they were books that were forever. It ain't stopped selling. Okay.
mhm, mhm,
Now, what changed the dynamics of the book industry, though, a lot greatly was there was a company that was produced by a sister. I think she was out of Mississippi called Triple Crown. When she came into the business, she came into the business and she came up with what you call urban fiction, or what you call the nonfiction. I mean, the fiction stuff that was uh, you say urban fiction, or I would call it smut kind of stuff. It's kind of
mhm.
stuff that got kind of raunchy, as you call it. Your Zanes came into play then. Uh, 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 Heat Seeker, stuff like that. You know,
Now, what
so
was that about?
that those were the books that was talking mostly about sex and relationships uh,
Mhm,
and pretty much street stuff, basically,
mhm,
mostly around a lot of hot sexual stuff. That took off flying and changed the dynamics of the book industry greatly because uh, that need increased so great that basically you couldn't keep the books on the shelf enough or long enough for you to for the next customer to come in to want to buy purchase them, but they was flying off the shelf like that because I guess it was feeding to the mentality of a lot of people. And I noticed it was
Mhm.
from not just it wasn't just granddaughters, it was grandmothers reading that kind of stuff, you
Mm.
know. And they didn't want to read anything else. That's all they wanted. I
These were
remember
mostly, would you say
I had
this was mostly women,
yes,
black women?
yes, mostly women. Men,
Mm-hmm.
black men kind of, a few black men got into it later on after it was around for a while. But I noticed that when I was downtown, I had the store downtown in the Thompson Center. There was a sisters coming to the table, and they were saying things like, "You got the good stuff." I know I want to see the good stuff. I didn't have the novels on the table yet,
Mm-hmm.
so what the good stuff was to them was the novels. Okay,
Okay.
they didn't want to see nothing about them history and none of that kind of stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
they didn't even care about. I remember one sister told me she didn't care. She wanted me to give her a better discount on the book, and I said I can't do that. I said I'm a black bookstore, and basically I can't give that kind of a bigger discount than Borders can. I said, why don't you just support black business? She said, well, I don't care, black, white, green, whatever. It don't matter to me. I just want a discount. I said, wait. I said, what if you was the woman at home waiting on me to come with the rent money? What would you do? I mean, if I told you that I was
Mm-hmm.
$10 short because I gave the lady at the show $10 off, what would you say? They ain't got nothing to do with me. I don't care about that. So
So, so,
got people that don't care, black, whatever. They all they want is what they want. Forget about
so,
that black.
so would you say that our behavior in terms of, not seeing the significance of supporting black, which is what I'm hearing, when I hear a commentary like that, and wanting to read, this type of urban fiction, as you call it, was that more of a reflection of where we were, as a people, or is it more of a reflection of where we were guided to go, you know, or lured to go? Was it more of a luring, or was it more of just a reflection of where we were as a people?
Well, now you want me to get in trouble. Okay. But anyway, yes. Well, I think that it was you were kind of lured there, of course, but um, that has something to do with it. Of course, the stage had been set. But when it started being put in books, then the number, as much as it was, what was in them was brought out in them even more. The more the books came out, the more they wanted to read. I mean, you had women who were having a library full of that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
Okay? That's all they had. And I mean, they had probably uh, 100, 200 books like that. Okay.
Hmm.
And I guess, I don't know what
Okay, Brother Yoel, your
they felt
screen.
that if they didn't have
Okay, we lost the last part of what you just said. Your screen froze.
get a what now?
Your screen froze. So we kind of
Oh,
lost the
okay.
last part of what you said.
Well, I just said that they were kind of it played right into they played right into them being set up already, and it didn't take much to push them in that direction. You know, just
Hmm.
some books with some um, sexual stories being told inside of those books. It
Hmm.
excited. excited them. Now that was that was a great difference between what black women were reading and what black men was reading at this time too, because black men was reading something that they wanted to know about, something they wanted
Mm-hmm.
to learn, something about themselves, or even political stuff. Black women were reading most black women were reading straight fiction. They said that I wanted to escape. I want to escape. I want to read something
Oh,
about escape. I want something to read light. I want some light reading. I don't want nothing
okay.
heavy. I heard all
Okay.
those kind of excuses from
Okay.
them about wanting to read something fiction.
Okay. So I guess that was the key word there, escaping. You know, I
Yes,
guess escaping from all of the problems
yes,
that we were having
yes,
during that time, you know. So the classics, you know, the Frederick Douglass, the W.B. Du Bois.
yes.
Why would what would be your explanation to people if you were talking to a group of people, black people in particular, as to why it would be important for us to read those types of books?
Well, see, what most people don't know is that writing books for us wasn't just writing books. Most of
Hmm.
those people, Toni Morrison, James Baldwin, and all those people coming out of that era, and stuff, they were writing stories. They were writing fiction, but it had a plot in it. It had something, a reality of what something that was going on with us in this country. Okay, so they inserted something more than that. They put a message there in what they were writing about. Okay,
Hmm.
so it
Hmm.
was something about our history and stuff like that in what they were writing. So they wasn't just writing that. It's just like even the industry, same thing. They wasn't just uh, singing songs. They were singing songs that had something that alluded to some struggle we had. I'm black and I'm
Hmm.
proud.
Hmm.
Someday a change is gonna come.
Hmm.
Those that had more meaning. Now they don't have any kind of meanings like that with most of the songs that they sing these days. They ain't talking about your struggles anymore. You know,
Hmm.
so it's changed.
Hmm. So this is you know, a reason why our bookstores are so important, you know, because we have our black bookstores, and whether you're going to read the fiction, you know, the urban fiction, to escape, or you also have the opportunity to read books that are going to talk about your reality and how we're dealing with that reality. I mean, you have authors, you know, like Claude Anderson, that's giving you a blueprint, you know, of an action that you can partake or follow to change your condition, to change your situation. Um, and so we really need to be reading those books to bring about a change in our condition.
Hmm. Yes.
I would say.
You got a question?
Yeah, well, I want you to, you know, expound on that.
Well, yeah, see, we just got into it. We just saw in the last 20, 30 years, they just saw somebody else get into it and they just figured that they'd do it too. They didn't know all of the dynamics that was involved in this. Okay? Had they talked to a Toni Morrison or somebody else, or even read the book and then understood what they were doing, they would have been picking up. They might have changed their mind and kind of scripted to where they put some of our struggles inside of it too. But most of
Hmm.
them didn't. They no longer wrote about their struggles and stuff like that. They just wrote some straight street stuff that they would probably watch out of their windows every day. Okay, but they still
Hmm.
felt the need to write about it as well. And
Hmm.
other people for some reason they might see it out of their windows every day, but they still were eager to read it.
Hmm.
you know, and so that's what they did. Now that company came and it went. Okay, I'm not sure if the company is even still around. I don't think it is, but um, most of those companies they had their little run or their little trend, and then it fell off.
Are you talking about Super Crown?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Most of that Urban Books, another company was Urban Books. So uh, they pretty much just fell off. Sales slowed down, and I guess they wasn't making the kind of money that they were making. Right now, I see the way I see myself, and I'm probably some other people like this too. We don't make a lot of money. We don't get rich at this because how many people that really comes in our stores every day searching to see and to find out about themselves? Not many.
Mm-hmm.
Most of my customers are males.
Mm-hmm.
Few females that wasn't reading the urban fiction, they still around, and I still got a few, but it's still a few. That number
Mm-hmm.
has not increased. The brothers who come in, of course, they still around, and the new brothers come in as well, but um, they're doing the same thing, reading the stuff that they're reading. But now, however, with this coming of this pandemic thing, I kind of had to reassess um, what a bookstore really means and how important it is.
Okay.
Um, First of all, with this pandemic, as it should be called, I I think that um, if you, when you want to consider the importance of the bookstore, and when it made me think about it, is people didn't know what was going on. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know what to do with respect to the jab or the vaccination they were trying to give, force everybody to take, and all of that kind of stuff. So, but they didn't know. They haven't been taught that if you want to uh, know something, you go and you do what? You research it, search it, or you go to an authority on it and
Mm-hmm.
find ask them questions. Now, mind you, we're supposed to have authorities on these kind of things that we call intellectuals,
Mm-hmm.
okay, black intellectuals. Now, if you wasn't getting what you should do from your black intellectuals, then you had a problem. And we weren't getting it, and we're still not getting it from a black intellectuals. In fact, those who we getting it from are basically in my opinion, they are failing us because some
Mm-hmm.
of them I know, and I ain't gonna mention the names, but they were taking that jab. Okay, and I'm like, I was in awe about that and what they were doing, So, but I am because if you understand what Dr. John Henry Clark, for instance, the definition that he gave about an intellectual's role, he said that an intellectual's role is like that of a mother to a child.
Mm-hmm.
It'll tell you where you come from, where you are, and where you still must go. They must teach you where to find yourself on the map of
Okay, Brother Yoel,
human
you're.
geography. Okay, so their roles. Can you hear me? Can
I
you hear
can hear
me?
you now. Yes.
Their role is critical to our society and our movement and our progression. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Because they're the people who we supposed to have working for us to go intellectually, meaning go get it, collect the information, the data, study it, and then come back and tell us which direction we should be going in, or what we
Mm-hmm.
should be doing, or what direction we shouldn't be going in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's their role. Okay, that's what a mother will tell her child. Okay, but these guys have not in this since during this pandemic told us anything. They were inside hiding just like everybody else, trying to avoid getting the virus and all that kind of stuff. But they didn't go out and first and foremost do what? Find a vaccine. That means
Mm-hmm.
collecting data. That means collecting intelligence. That means collecting information about what's in this vaccine, right? And I'm just using them as an um, um, right now to kind of explain the role of a bookstore. black bookstore.
Mm-hmm.
Because in my opinion, it became clear to me about how much more important it was, to the point where I decided I would no longer say I'm got a bookstore and this is and I'm selling uh, books, but this is Central Intelligence headquarters. Okay, the
Absolutely.
CIA headquarters. This is where you come for intelligence. Intelligence
Mm-hmm.
means what? Information. So if
Mm-hmm.
you want to know something that's going on, this is where you come and get that information. If you don't know what's going on, you need to be, like I said, doing research or going to someone who's an authority to try to get uh, to find out what's going on. And that's
Mm-hmm.
something that we didn't know to do. And we hadn't been trained to do that, because even in the military, for instance, what are the first things before the rules of engagement before they engage their enemy? They collect what? Intelligence. What do we
Mm-hmm.
know? Okay, this country is so and so and so is situated here. They got this many population. They got this. They collect information on
Mm-hmm.
whoever it is that they about to engage. Okay, so in every relationship, whether it's friends, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wives, you name the relationship, basically, uh, the first thing you do is you collect information. You want to know about the okay, who they are, the family, and all that. It's called getting to know them. But we don't recognize that principle when it comes to uh, the overall dynamics around society like that, or in American society, we don't recognize the dynamics there. You know, um, that we need to go get information.
Right.
And written by somebody that is non us, a Caucasian named James Lowen, for instance. He wrote a book called Lies My Teacher Told. Wow. A white man saying lies my teacher told.
Mm-hmm.
How bad is that? Now, if he said lies his teacher told, what you think he told us? That's why Carter G. Woodson wrote his book, Miseducation of the Negro. He saw
Mm-hmm.
it long before this guy did.
Mm-hmm.
He wrote that in the what, early '60s,
Mm-hmm.
and so he saw that we were being miseducated, not only about ourselves, but in so many other ways we were being miseducated. So he knew that he understood that they were trying to control the thought process
Mm-hmm.
of us as a people. You know,
Absolutely.
so they felt that they had to do that, and even in some instances where they had to brainwash their own people, they were willing to do that just
Mm-hmm.
to get us where they wanted us to be. Because it really it's ironic, but all of this is about you. Okay, everything
Mm-hmm.
that happens here, you are the star. We are black folks, African Americans, Africans, you whatever you want to call us. We are the stars of this um, motion picture that I referred the way I refer to it on life on planet Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about your falling from your high and mighty lofty place. You're falling from pharaohs to negroes,
Mm-hmm.
from palaces to penitentiaries, from dope fiends, from queens and queens to dope fiends. Okay, that's a long drop, and I'm talking thought process.
Yeah.
Okay, more than anything, because there was a decline in consciousness taking place, and now we're
Mm-hmm.
down here to this lower state of consciousness, trying to find our way. Don't even know, and most of us didn't even want to be referred to as African in no kind of way.
That's
Okay,
right.
so Africa has been painted so negatively. Jungles, wild animals, people running around in no clothes on, and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And to this day, you
Mm-hmm.
never see really hardly. You might have seen maybe 0.1% of movies created showing you a city in Africa. I was looking in a book earlier today, and I saw Johannesburg, and I saw some other cities, Accra,
Mm-hmm.
and the book just covered some other different cities in Africa, and I saw buildings that I ain't never seen on nobody's TV or any, not too much in any books.
Right.
Okay, so that was purposely done. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
of course, so that did a lot to make us dislike and resent being called African in any kind of way, shape, or form. And even to this day, you still got some people like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, but the idea is of the bookstore, this importance is because it's where you keep the conversation going about our struggles and what we need to do. It's
That's
where you
right.
start those conversations about our struggles and what you need to do. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure that 80 to 90% of the people that really learn uh, a lot of stuff that they did not know about their Black history, 80 or 90% of those people will say they got that when they left college or outside of
Mm-hmm.
college, bookstore
Yep.
somewhere, like bookstore.
Right.
Okay, they didn't get that in school. They
Right.
had to go to a Black bookstore and buy those books. Okay, so uh, had they not got them, had we not had those Black bookstores as sources to do that, then they wouldn't have learned some of the stuff we're learning. And like for instance, right now, information is pouring out right now,
Mm-hmm.
but we're slowing down with respect to reading. We going to gadgets, and as the dynamics though is different though because you know it has to do with first things first, okay? And the first thing that you do is collect, like I said earlier, collect information about what it is you want to know. Okay, right. So, um, this, right now we got all these things going and things are kind of slowing down. But right now we don't need to be slowing down. We need to be doing it more because there's quietly, as the age of Aquarius comes into play,
Mm-hmm.
those people who don't know that, what Aquarius represents the information age. Now, hence, here come all the information. It's pouring out, coming from all over the place. Even the
Mm-hmm.
Bible talks about in the end times, knowledge would be on the increase.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we got it on the increase. It's coming out of the internet. We calling coming out of books. You ain't never had so much information before. Your grandmothers and grandfathers, if they could find a Bible, maybe they might have a book, but they didn't
Mm-hmm.
have books like we have books today. Okay, so it's changed, but yet we are not taking advantage of that change right now and this availability of this information. Now, why is that important? That's important because information is what you're supposed to collect about who you are to remind you of who you are so you can become who you are.
That's
Okay?
right.
That's important because right now we still don't know who we are. If I ask pretty much 9 out of 10 people on the streets who they are and what their nationality is, for instance, they wouldn't know. I'm black. They say I'm black, or they say I'm African American. Uh, both of which are incorrect because those are not nationalities. Okay, and since you don't know who you are, then that means must obviously means that you're somebody else's property because somebody else names us.
And not only do we not know who we are, we often do not understand where we are and who we are and where we are in relationship to other people
Of
and
course.
other places in this world. And I see the in the schools, less geography is being taught, yet alone, history. Our schools, our children in our schools are really undereducated, not only about the information that we might find in the classics, about our history, but just about our culture, just
Hmm.
maybe a generation before them,
Hmm.
and not even wanting to know about that because everything is becoming so much of a trend, a fad, a old school. Well, we don't think about that no more. We don't want to do that anymore, or we don't care about that anymore.
Hmm.
And it's taking you further and further and further away from having that understanding of who you are and
Hmm.
where you are in the scheme of things.
Hmm. Well,
Mm-hmm.
yes, it is. at a time when you should be even wanting to know it even more, because these times are not like none other.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, everybody, each and every one of us are on our own, and you can only do what? Lean on your own understanding. And if that
Mm-hmm.
understanding is not clear on who you are, who's your enemy, if you got an enemy, because most of us don't even know we got an adversary or an enemy. Keep in mind that most Christians or Muslims and those people in the religion should know that this is a spiritual war here that
Mm-hmm.
we're involved in. This stuff is not just happening. You don't just get up and go to work and buy what you buy and do the things you do and stuff like this. This thing is headed. This life cycle here is headed in a direction of something here. There's a lessons here to be learned, a battle here to be fought. But if you don't know that you got an enemy, then you don't know who to fight. You end up fighting yourselves. Mostly that's what we do. And in most cases, since we don't know who we are, then we don't know whose side we're supposed to be on. A lot of us are on
Mm-hmm.
the other team side and don't
Mm-hmm.
even know that
And don't even know it. Don't even know it. That's right.
whatever your job is on that job, I don't care how much money you're making, you working for the enemy. You helping him out. You helping him to do what he does. Okay? To do what he was created to come here to do. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a problem. Um, when you talk about some of the things that we uh, uh, have been involved in and the jobs that we done had and stuff like that. Because, when you really, you mentioned something, knowing who we are, amongst the society. That's called status. What's your status with respect to yourselves and other people in the society that we live in? If you come to the table with African American, or for instance, or black or Negro and all of those other terms that they use to refer to us, then they'll say they already know that you're lost. You still
Mm-hmm.
don't know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that whatever they've been doing is still working.
Mm-hmm.
Willie Lynch syndrome is still in effect, but you can't tell them that. You almost have to be very skilled in this business, and that's something that I've learned in this business. You can't really uh you have to learn how to reach the people that you are trying to reach, open their heads up without cutting it open, and pour some knowledge into it, and you got to know how much knowledge to pour into it, because if you give them too much, they're like babies. They'll throw up. They're rejected. They're looking for you to make a mistake somewhere, and they'll back off. Okay.
As you're talking, it reminds me of this film, The Rabbit Proof Fence,
Yes.
when they were trying, the Australians were, and then this is a true story, the
Yes.
Australians were trying to breed out the Aborigine people, and they took these girls away from their family, and they put them in a Christian convent. And when they escaped, they were running back. They were trying to get back, and the youngest girl, she gave up. It was easier. She was thinking. It was the food, the comforts that she had at the Christian convent. She was willing to go back to that because that was easier than the flight that they were going to take through the desert to go back home. And we are kind of in a situation like that. I won't say kind of, we are in a situation like that. And when you talk about the Black women wanting to escape, and today it's not just the Black women, it's the Black women and the Black men. And we're just not dealing with the reality of the situation. And so this is why I wanted to talk about this tonight, about why our bookstores are so important. And we're kind of getting close to running out of time. But I wanted you to also, have some commentary on books and what we should be reading to our children. because they're definitely getting a little information in the schools. And I guess it would depend on who their teacher is and who the principal of the school is, even addressing Black History Month, you know. Um, so, what advice would you give to parents in terms of reading and the information in terms of the books that you have in your bookstore, visiting your bookstore? What information would you have to give to our parents?
Well, let me just say first of all, before you I go there, let me just say that as this thing is unfolding here and this information is out here, people are trying to control that information because control of that information are also prophetically coming out of some books that says uh, that the last battle would be fought over the control of your mind, and this information is key to triggering that mind. Okay, it's in your DNA. So you must know that and be aware of the fact that you are um, um, this battle is being fought over this information, and you need to get it. Okay, and also I'll say that you got a lot of people playing. You got the issue of people in universities that are working for the other side. Just because they're a university, they don't mean that they are working on your behalf. Okay, just because somebody black is working for them, don't mean that they're working on your behalf. Okay, so you must know that, and then they are changing. The other thing they must know is that if you don't get these books, they are changing and taking out these books when they go digital with them. They're taking out words, paragraphs, even chapters of
Mm.
books. How you think they're going to? They plan on getting rid of slavery in their books as the Texas this keeps uh, chanting. Okay, they got a plan to do that. And when they go digital, they won't be there anymore. They can delete all of that stuff. If you don't have a hard copy, you won't see that. So they are changing these books. Okay. Um, and there's new information coming out every day about us and our history. I just found out the other day they had a Roman emperor, an African Roman emperor, another Roman emperor that was also a Roman emperor of of um, England. Okay, that whole dynamics that we saw in Game of Thrones was us. Okay, that was us. There's a white woman who just discovered that some fantastic, famous magicians were coming out of Tudor, England. Okay, and they were black. They were all black, and she wrote this book called Black Tudors. Okay, so you got a lot of new information coming out. Now, with respect to what I think that they should be reading, as old as they are, Carter G. Woodson's book is still very, very much uh, needed to be read for the times we're living in right now, so you can begin to try to understand what times you're in.
And that's the
And what no,
miseducation of the
how you get
Negro.
miseducated. Okay, that's number one. That will book. Then you got um, books like Francis Cress Welsing's, of course, Isis Papers. These are older books. Not to mention the new stuff that's coming out, but that she's teaching her stuff is telling you basically the psychology of these people. Her and Marin Barani with Urugu. This is an Afrocentric critique of European thoughts and behavior, right? Well, she caught a lot of flack for writing that book. She had to stop selling that book for about 2 or 3 years because she was getting her
Mhm.
life threatened because it
Mhm.
was about 500 pages, and they were saying
Mhm.
like, "I dare you, little niggerish, critique our uh, thinking so
Mhm.
well." Okay, so she had it down to a science. So um, those kind of books, even on the political side, get something about New World Order. What is that? You keep hearing about it. People keep talking about it. We'll find out what it is. Okay, and how it relates to your glorious past and history and stuff like that. Which I implore people greatly to do this because I saw so many people who I thought was called so-called conscious over this last 2 years, and out of all the books they read, they went and took a jab from somebody who I definitely didn't believe that they needed to be taking a jab from, because you know they just didn't need to take it. But because their information that they had read, like for instance, if you go and come in the store and all you read is history books, then you ain't gonna know about the politics of your enemy. You ain't gonna get it there. You're gonna know that he hid some of your knowledge of who you are from you, yes, but you ain't gonna know how he's moving and what he's doing politically. And these are books, mostly 99% of them are written by Caucasians about other bad Caucasians.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have them writing like that, you need to read what they're talking about so you can know what they're talking about, and understand what they're talking about with respect to other people. Classic example, Robert Kennedy's book that just came out, uh, The Real Anthony Fauci. Well, if
Mm-hmm.
you already know who Anthony Fauci was before, now you have no excuse. This man then put himself out there and wrote a book called The Real Anthony Fauci. So he's telling you that this man has been involved in criminal activity. Okay, so so I would say read something about the New World Order, uh, but read something about, of course, about ourselves. Of course, that's without question. But you got to learn how to bring these two together and understand who your enemy is, and and practice what you call the art of war. And that's another book that I think we should read, because remember that it was that book that told us that Sun Tzu said that to keep one of his philosophies was to keep his friends close, but keep his enemies closer.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they do to us. That's what the University of Chicago does to us. That's what Northwestern does to us. Okay, these people have over the years paid other black folks to do studies on us, their own people. And of course, they thought they were doing something big and they was getting paid for this. Uh, um, Black Metropolis, Sinclair Drake, and Urban Ghettos. This other guy who wrote. It's been at least about 5 or 6 of them written right here in Chicago, commissioned by the University of Chicago. Well, why they want them to write these things? Have they done anything about our history? Have they done anything about our social interactions and our economics or anything? No, but they've commissioned many of us to write these books so that they can keep up with what you're doing and how you're thinking and how it's
Now,
going.
okay, now what about our children? Okay, the books that you have identified, and recommended, I can see that for high school,
Hmm.
maybe even seventh, eighth grade, or some parts of middle school. But what about our younger children and the books that are being presented to them?
You got a lot of those books out out here about that young children should read. But the problem is that when the child gets start learning how to read by age, but uh, the mothers buy them books when they are young, between I say 5 to maybe 9 or 10. Okay, now after that they start letting them make decisions, and they are
Hmm.
choosing to do what they want to get on the little phone and do all kind of play all kind of games and stuff like that on games. So they begin to buy them those kind of things. They allow them to start making the decision and making the choices on what they want to do to entertain themselves.
Hmm.
So you lose them by age 12. 13. But yeah, we got a lot of books that talk about heroes and sheroes, black heroes and sheroes. Your History by J.A. Rogers. You got some of them who are that are also graphic magazines. You got a
Hmm.
beautiful book that just come out on the Black Panthers. It's a graphic novel and whatnot.
Hmm.
Um, they even turned, I think it was Zornair Hurston book Kendricks, no, Octavia Butler's book Kendricks into a novel. I mean, not a
Mhm.
novel, but a graphic novel. Okay, like cartoon characters. Um, so you have a lot of those black heroes from A to Z, black
Mhm.
scientists and black inventors. Uh, those are things that tell you that tell the children or implant seeds into their heads at an early age about what you did that still around today, that you invented, and how what kind of role you played in science and all of that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of books like that, but however, we can't keep as many as really coming out. So because they don't sell as much no more, because they keep letting them get younger and younger with respect to carrying around them phones and playing on them games on their phone.
And then, like you said, about making choices and parents, the adults being more in control of, and making choices about what the children are going to read and what they're going to partake in. And it seems like over the years they've given up their control, because even the way they teach the children now, well, let's meet the child where they are right
Mm,
now, in terms of all of these influences that they're having with the computer and virtual reality and technology. So let's
mm.
play the game, let's play the rap music, and let's teach the math that way,
It's
and
easier.
meeting the
It's
children where they
easy.
are, giving in,
It's
basically
easy.
giving in.
It's easy.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't require much brain activity. You
Right.
know, so yes, that's what they do, and they go with what's easy. But you got to be consistent as a parent. But then again, they can just start with their parents. Their parents were set up a long time ago if their parents didn't teach them these things,
Right.
or those who did get taught that got away from those things.
Right.
You have you been in the conscious community? A lot of the people whose parents was in this community, their children, do you see them following in their parents' steps? No, they're not. They're not doing that. They own
Mm-hmm.
something else. Okay, I can use my own children for example. You know, uh, of being following in the footsteps or doing what you do and stuff like that. They're not
Absolutely.
around, and so therefore we lose. You can only hope that you gave them enough that they don't that they don't drift all the way away from what you taught
Mhm.
them when they were younger.
Right.
Okay.
But they'll find their way back,
Yes.
hopefully. Well, brother Yoel, you have given a wonderful case for maintaining our black bookstores. Explaining why everything that you talked about, from the time that you started, the decline of our bookstores, talking about the different books, and our different behaviors and how they have changed through the years, and the influences that are
Mm-hmm.
upon us. I mean, you have just stated a great case for why we need to continue to have our black bookstores, why they're so important in our community. So I'm going to let you wrap this up, and then we're going to end this show. But I surely appreciate you coming tonight, and I'll just let you have the final commentary.
Well, I can only say that basically we need to quick, fast, and in a hurry as a people discover that this is spiritual warfare, no matter how much fun you might have going through it here, that that these things are not just happening. Nature didn't unleash a virus on us. You need to be understanding where it comes from and who unleashed it on us. And you have more of these kind of things happening in the future. So you really need to know what's going on. They're already hinting on, for instance, prices going up. Food. Can you imagine what that's going to look like if the brothers and sisters can't buy their child that food for that day, and how they going to be pulling on mamas and daddies uh, whining because they're hungry and mama can't take all that crying and she snaps and all of that kind of stuff, or daddy, you know. So we need to get it together, people. We need to find out where we are right now and start going to places so we can speak to somebody who might be in authority, or some place where we can collect information or intelligence at, as a source and whatnot before it's too late for us. And then you leave your children deficient because you didn't teach them, because you didn't know.
That's right. That's right. Well, thank you, Brother Yoel. Again, I want to definitely commend you for the work that you're doing in the community, the service that you're providing in the community, and continuing to maintain the underground bookstore. And you can tell the audience your location, your website, how they can reach you, because I know they can come in the store, but you have a website, and definitely if there's a book you're looking for, that's something I know about underground. If there's a book you're looking for, if it's out there, you can find it.
Yes. I like to kind of pride myself off trying to find books that's kind of hard to get, you know. So yes, if you're looking for something that is hard to find, then I'll be glad to look into it for myself. Unfortunately, sometimes when I find some of these books, they're so pricey because they are that rare, and that most people who are looking for them can't afford them. Uh, but you can find me at, of course, Underground Bookstore at 1727 East 87th Street in Chicago. Um, Telephone number 773-768-8869. That's 773-768-8869. We open from Monday to Saturday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Email address is the Underground Bookstore at gmail.com and Underground Bookstore 1 at gmail.com. Underground Bookstore 1, the number 1, at gmail.com. So we have two email address and we have a website, but it ain't where I would like for it to be right now, but we're still working on it. So we're trying to get there. So thank you very much again for this evening and allowing me to come on and talk to you and the people who are viewing, who will be viewing too.
Absolutely. Visit our website at rrgbc.org, where you will be able to view this podcast. It will be in our archives. You can shop on our online store and make a donation to Repair, Restore, and Grow Black Communities. We are helping our businesses in the community. We've helped a couple of businesses get a website up. We go to battle for businesses, trying to help them if they're having some difficulties, staying open. We're addressing some public policies right now with our Black bookstores. We want our mayor to allocate 10% of the school budget that is set aside for the purchase of books to our Black bookstores. That once was the case, and that will help our bookstores to maintain. And we're also asking you to please support Frontline Bookstore in Hyde Park. So thank you again, and thank you again, Brother Yoel, and everyone have a good night.